Hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm going to get a couple of images of your chest today. Can you please tell me your full name?
My name is Tuana Albarzinji.
And your date of birth. And you don't have to say your actual date of birth if you don't want to.
It's November 18th, 2001.
And is there any chance you could be pregnant? You just say no. Yeah. So again, this is what you'll go through with your patient for your simulation. You introduce yourself, you ask for the patient's full name, date of birth, and if you have a female patient, you ask if there's any chance they could be pregnant. I'm going to start out demonstrating the PA and lateral chest. Those are two projections, one exam. I'm going to bring my tube over. And remember last week I talked about having the tube in transverse detent to the table. This week, for the PA and lateral chest, since our patient's at the wall stand, I'm putting my tube in transverse detent so that it's centered to the wall bucky. I'm using the wall bucky, so my central ray needs to be directed toward the wall bucky, wall stand. So I'm moving my tube so that it's horizontal, have a 90-degree readout. Also, last week I told you that when you're working at the table, there is no detent longitudinally. At the wall stand, I'm going to put my tube in detent to lock the tube in at a specific distance from the tube to the image receptor. So that distance from the tube to the image receptor is called the SID, source to image receptor distance, and that's on your simulation guides. So for our chest exam, our SID is 72 inches. For every chest exam, your SID is 72 inches. So I'm going to move this tube closer, and I'm looking along the green track, and I have this tube locked in so that it's 72 inches from the wall bucky. That's your source, meaning your X-ray tube, to image receptor distance. I know that this is in detent because I have the light that's on next to the green button. And that's what you need to look for to be in detent. Transversely, if you're in detent, you'll see that light next to the orange button. If you're at the wall bucky and you're supposed to be at a 72-inch SID, then your light will be on next to the green button in detent. Now then, ma'am, I want you to stand with your chest up against that board. Walk right up to that.
Like that.
Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that our patient is vertical and not leaning toward the wall bucky. So take a tiny step back. So let's say our patient was leaning and we want her closer. Or let's say that she's standing upright, but we can definitely see there's a gap between her and the wall bucky. Rather than just have your patient lean in, you would say, take a step toward that board. Right. And now I want you to reach forward with your hands and grab the bar that's in front of you. I want you to stand with your feet separated, shoulder width apart, a little bit farther. And that's to provide stability for your patient, because you want to reduce the possibility that they're going to wobble. And my patient in place here, now I'm going to center. When I have my tube in detent, the default is for the collimation size to expand to 17 by 17 inches. So when I'm working at the wall bucky, And I have my tube in detent transversely and at the 72-inch SID for the chest exam. My collimation field size defaults to 17 by 17. But we know that we want our collimation size to be 14 by 17 lengthwise. So to change that, we don't manually collimate using these knobs. We go to the control panel and we notice that the screensaver is on. So we move our mouse and we reveal this screen that has the 4 different icons for the image size and orientation. So we have 10 by 12 crosswise, 10 by 12 lengthwise, 14 by 17 crosswise, and 14 by 17 lengthwise. When we select the 14 by 17 lengthwise, we can either click on that or use the touch screen. Our collimation size automatically adjusts to that correct 14 by 17 inch size. 14 across, 14 across, and 17 inches lengthwise. And that's collimation size will stay that size until I either manually collimate or if I move the tube out of detent, either transversely or longitudinally for my SID, once I put the tube back into detent, that collimation size will expand again, will default to the 17 by 17 inch size, and I would need to go to the control panel again to correct that and go back to the 14 inch by 17 inch lengthwise collimation size. Now then, I'll have you stand with your chest against the board, forward, stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Grab a hold of that bar, that's good. Now I'm going to center. I know, this is your central ray, right in the middle of those crosshairs. So I know that I need to center at the mid-sagittal plane, and I'm also centering at the level of T7. How do I find T7? Well, one method that I can use is to place my thumb on the patient's vertebra prominence, that's that most prominent spinous process, spread my fingers apart, and my pinky is here. That should be approximately T7. Now these are landmarks that you use, and these are guidelines. So I'm going to bring my tube down to that level. Notice how when I do that, and excuse me just a moment, now I've got to make sure that I have my central ray and my image receptor aligned. I've got to center my central ray to my image receptor. We know that it is transversely because we put the tube in transverse detent to achieve that. But I have to manually move my bucky to align the central ray with the image receptor in that dimension. Okay, so go ahead and step forward again. Now you see how I have a couple of inches of light above her shoulders. That is a good indication to me that my centering is good. Why is it important to have that light above the shoulders? the apices,
Yeah.
Oh.
the right and left apex. Good. So, let's say that I went through this, and let's say that my thumb wasn't on a vertebral prominence, that this is where I measured. And I centered lower. Now right away, whoop, go ahead and stand up. Right away, you see I just got like a finger width of light there. Right away that should tell me, oh wait, that centering's not good. Measure again. That's better. All right. Now, grab that handle that's in front of you on your left as well. I'm going to use my left marker. I really do know what I'm doing, I promise you that. In the light, I know I did that before. Okay. I'm placing my marker in the light superiorly on this side. That is going to mark my patient's left side. I'm going to roll this shielding over here. Make sure my patient's shielded. Now when you do your simulation, it doesn't matter the height of this. Just make sure that you placed your shield here. Now then I need you to roll your shoulders forward, roll those shoulders forward, and you don't just tell your patient to do this, you guide their shoulders forward. Need you to raise your chin, look up. I'm going to give you some breathing instructions. So you'll come back here to this opening, and you will say, take a deep breath in, blow it all the way out, take in another deep breath, and hold it, exposure. You may breathe, and relax. So that's my PA chest. You may relax. The reason I roll the shoulders forward is because you'll see on this image the outline of the scapula. Over here and over here. So by rolling the shoulders forward, I move those scapula out of the lung field. So we get a better image of the air-filled lungs. Your patient needs to raise their chin so that there's no soft tissue from the neck obscuring the apices of the lungs. Something else that I need to tell you is these are instructions that you need to give verbally. Raise your chin, stand with your feet shoulder width apart, because your patient's going to be your classmate and they're going to know the same stuff you do. But if your patient comes over here and they stand like this, yet you don't give those instructions, you won't pass your simulation, because I won't know that you knew to do that and you just got lucky. And there's going to be somebody in your class, hear me now, believe me later, that's not going to tell their patient to do that, not tell their patient to raise their chin, but your patient will do that automatically, and I'll say, you'll need to attempt this again, and you'll say, why? Well, you didn't tell the patient to raise her chin. Well, her chin was raised. Okay, but you didn't give those instructions, so how do I know you knew to do that? See what I mean? So if you're the patient, don't help out, because you're really not helping out. Okay. For the lateral, I want you to turn and place your left side against the board. Turn and face me. Now, I'm gonna move this handle across. There's a knob back here that I pull out to release the handle. I want you to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Reach up and grab the top bar
With my left,
with both hands.
both hands, like that.
Mhm. I'm still at 72 inches, this hasn't moved. Collimated to 14 by 17. Now then, I'm gonna position my patient, and you can see, Alex, there's quite a gap between my patient left side and the wall bucky. I'm going to tell my patient, step to your left against that board. Okay. Now, her whole side is against the board, from shoulder to hips. That's good, that's what you want. But I will tell you that some people are built in a way that their shoulders are against the wall bucky. But if we got their hips against the wall bucky, that would mean they'd be leaning over to do that, and you don't want that. So somebody who has kind of broad shoulders and narrower at the hips, you may have that little bit of gap at the hips, but they're standing
have it.
straight. All right, we want to make sure that there's no rotation, that our patient is in a true lateral. One of the ways you can tell is the placement of the feet. Don't move your feet. So I can tell that her toe on her left side is a little bit in front of the right foot. So I'm just gonna plant my foot here and say, can you just scoot that right foot forward to my foot? There you go. So they're straight across now. So that's more likely that she's lateral. Again, I'm centering at T7. Now if I'm looking anteriorly, that's about 3 to 4 inches below the jugular notch. Now I'm gonna just touch lightly, just a place on your neck here, so you feel for that indentation. And you eyeball, measure down about 3 to 4 inches. And so I think I'm centered correctly at T7. I want to center the mid-coronal plane. So I want to center on the patient. Step forward, please.
This one?
There you go. Now then, I'm centered anterior to posterior. I see a little light behind my patient, and I see a little light in front of my patient. Actually, with this patient, I could probably collimate in a smidgen. I've provided shielding. My marker is placed superiorly. I've used my left marker because the patient's left side is against the bucky. Her arms are reached up to the highest bar so that there's no soft tissue of the arms obscuring the apices. I'm going to ask you to raise your chin. And I'm going to give you some breathing instructions. Taking a deep breath, blow it all the way out. Taking another deep breath and hold it, exposure. You may breathe and relax.